俺と別れ半年。少しはマシになったようだな。では本格的にしごいてやるとするか。ほい。
My time on Earth was good for teaching me some brand new techniques.
Yeah, right. Let me guess. You learned how to run away.
I learned to hide my power.
It keeps getting higher.
I'm just getting warmed up, fish face. Better stick around.
It can't be. Your power level is as high as mine.
Oh, no. It's much, much higher than you can begin to imagine, Kui. You see, while you've been relaxing with Frieza, I've been in training, competing against everyone I came across, all the time growing stronger and stronger.
20, 21, 22.
Hey guys, this is Poohead189, and today we're going to do a deep dive into the way training and power works in Dragon Ball. Really, this is going to touch on a few different topics, but I hesitate to call this a real video essay, even if it might fit that criteria a bit better than my usual Dragon Ball info videos. I actually wrote an essay about this about 10 years ago on Tumblr, and actually if anyone here uses Tumblr, I have one that has a collection of Dragon Ball GIFs that spans years and years. But as to the essay, as I was writing it, I realized the best way to categorize a comparison of training and power was comparing the Earthlings and their training against the wider universe and the alien races involved. But as I was making this video, I realized it's not that simple. Really, the best way to compare and contrast would to couple the Earthlings and the Namekians together versus the Saiyans versus the rest of the alien species in the universe. And I realize all of this sounds fairly vague and esoteric, but I wanted to preface this video with a rough categorization to better let me write this script. To break down how different species gain strength is a very large topic, and so differentiating is needed. Okay, so let's begin. Let's start with the Earthlings. And I know there is some contention on whether or not a few notable characters like Ten Shinhan are pure Earthlings, but for the sake of this video, I am counting everyone native to planet Earth, even if they do not have the normal human traits like a third eye or a lack of a nose or being pale and ageless. Anyway, it's pretty obvious if you've watched the series in any dub or read the manga that Earth is a planet with some of the weakest inhabitants in the galaxy, particularly at the start of the series. Farmer with Shotgun has a power level of 5, for instance, and generally he is considered the average baseline human. But what people tend to never talk about is how much of an advantage this really is when it comes to combat, because of the fact that humans are helpless against weather, large rocks, large animals, or anyone in the universe with any real strength. Naturally, humans in human society developed ways in order to compensate and grow stronger through various levels of training, and training is actually extremely rare in the Dragon Ball universe, which of course sounds strange since it's such a staple of the series, but it only is a staple because we start the series on Earth. Now, training a base human to a high power level and discovering ki, rather than being born with a natural inclination of its use, is highly beneficial if you're able to breach that barrier, because it unlocks a larger understanding of ki in general. A good comparison would be, do you guys know that meme about a non-native English speaker who speaks very eloquently, but they apologize for their poor English even though they speak better English than a native speaker? Now, obviously, that isn't true for a lot of people who did not learn English as a first language, but the stereotype is there for a reason. Because for a native speaker, they learn English because it's almost impossible not to. They're so used to the language that even though it's taught in schools, they really don't know the specifics because it's almost instinctual with how they speak it. Yet someone who learns it as a second language has to learn the basics consciously and learn the specifics deliberately. And because of that, if they really focus on learning it, they can more easily recall what a conjugation is than someone who can use one but really can't dissect what that means. And this is why Krillin, Tien, Yamcha, and Chaozu know more techniques and have more innate abilities like sensing ki and raising their battle powers than any aliens they meet, because they had to learn all of it from the ground up, which gives them a better foundation of manipulating ki. Now, Toriyama obviously wasn't an expert on martial arts, be it in practice or research, but he understood the basics of Far Eastern martial arts because he grew up in that society. That ki is inherent in all organic beings, and that the manipulation of it is tangentially connected to enlightenment, because with enlightenment, you're supposed to be able to surpass your normal human limits. There's an old myth of Bodhidharma arriving at the Shaolin monastery around the 5th or 6th centuries, and at the time, the Shaolin monks weren't martial artists. They were the more traditional definition of monk, being scholars and teachers. And due to their poor health of eating, a limited diet, and sitting all day, bending their backs, Bodhidharma taught them fitness to aid in their endeavors, and he resided in a cave during his stay, and would sit all day and watch the cavern wall. And once, when a monk came to bring him food, he saw there was now a hole in the wall where he was staring, something the enlightened one did with just his will. And there are various things in Dragon Ball like that. Sensing ki is one of them, as is the ability to fly. A great example is Goku being able to read thoughts and sense feelings after he trains in the gravity room on the way to Namek. People really don't get how that's possible, but it falls in line with some theories on enlightenment. Goku pushed his body far enough and gained enough ki to unlock this ability, just like how enlightenment can grant someone otherworldly powers. Also, people claim Goku only uses it once and never again, but that's not true. He uses it on Krillin when he arrives, but also Future Trunks when Future Trunks arrives. But back to Earthlings. It's this sort of fundamental understanding of ki and the competitive nature between humans that lets them make techniques that allows them to punch above their weight class, and also raise their battle powers to compensate. During the Saiyan saga, Krillin is easily outmatched by Nappa, but the Kienzan or Destructo Disc could have cut Nappa in half if Vegeta had not warned him. Yamcha is outclassed by Kami in the 23rd tournament, but with his Spirit Ball, he wounds God. And the best example is probably Tien's Tri-Beam or Kikoho. Earthlings are able to punch above their weight class with special techniques often. And Earthlings have another huge advantage that we cannot forget, and that is their masters. Since training is not extremely common throughout the galaxy, there aren't many martial arts masters in the universe. Hell, it's one of the things that makes the afterlife itself special. But because of this, not only are humans who learn how to raise their strength and manipulate ki benefited from how difficult it is, but every master helps them not only learn new techniques, but they grant them different training techniques that lets them grow their strength exponentially. From Roshi to Korin to Kami, whenever the Earthlings go to train with a new master, their strength increases at a faster and faster rate. This is why when Vegeta and Nappa arrive on Earth, they're surprised there are a bunch of power levels that are over 1,000, because that does not match the readings Raditz had a mere year before. It's not usual for beings from a planet to raise their battle powers, particularly that significantly, in such a short amount of time. And this, coupled with their basic and fundamental upbringing with training and ki, is why the whole debate between Goku and Vegeta and who was gifted and who worked for their strength is missing the entire point. Neither is wholly accurate, really, though I will say one is a bit more true than the other, but it's still a fundamentally stupid question. It's clear Goku has worked for his power throughout his life, and while Vegeta did start out gifted with great strength, he obviously worked for it exceptionally hard once he began to train like the Earthlings. And let it be said that both Goku and Vegeta are very smart when it comes to battle. Vegeta might have been born gifted, but it's very clear he has an incredible sense of battle. He learned how to raise and lower his battle power and sense ki after observing it on Earth and taking just a small amount of time, which is very impressive. However, the reason Goku tends to come out on top is not that Goku is more gifted. Like I said, both are quite gifted and both work very hard. The difference is that Goku started out weaker and he learned from different masters, which helped him gain a better understanding of how to train. Goku simply has more experience and tutors in training than Vegeta. This is why, while Vegeta was talented enough to surpass the Super Saiyan and become an ascended Super Saiyan in the Time Chamber, and how he was smart enough to know the limits of Ultra Super Saiyan, unlike Trunks, Goku still surpassed him, even though Goku's Mastered Super Saiyan allegedly does not have an increased multiplier like Ascended Super Saiyan does. Goku was able to surpass Vegeta not only in strength, because of his training techniques, but strategy because of his fundamental understanding of gaining strength. Being gifted or working hard does not matter when it comes to comparing the two being Goku and Vegeta. It's simply Goku having the experiences that let him work smarter. Meanwhile, while Vegeta certainly works hard for his strength, compared to Goku, Vegeta's training is more like walking into a gym and doing deadlifts without stretching. He works very hard, but he knows slightly less protocol and technique than Goku, no matter who is smarter. Now, we need to speak about Namekians. They have an understanding of Ki that rivals that of the more powerful and learned Earthlings. And this is why I put them in the same category at the beginning of the video, as with Earthlings. They can hide and raise their battle powers, and some can increase their strength to incredible levels through training, like Nail. This is why Kami's training on Earth was so special. Plus, we can't forget Guru's ability to unlock potential, though it's difficult to say if that's magical or not. And also, I will say it's difficult to tell if Nail is that strong because his power was unlocked from Guru. But I will say that the training techniques that Kami has are fundamentally Namekian, so it's likely he learned stuff from training as well. Still, Namekian training is vital, and without their influence in training, the Earthlings would not have been prepared for more than a few threats. Now, onto other species in the universe. Obviously, the Saiyans and other species don't really follow the Earthlings and their philosophies. They are naturally strong, or at least stronger than Earth, but that means they haven't needed to learn the fundamentals the Earthlings have. Obviously, the Saiyans and their Zenkais are special, however. That and their Ozaru form, of course. Zenkai meaning the Saiyan power boost. This is very unusual, and the fact that they could even raise their power in such a way is what made Frieza wary of their race. Because, again, raising one's power at all is quite unusual. In fact, an argument could be made that Zenkais were somewhat uncommon, even for Saiyans, for the sheer fact that a Saiyan has to be beaten badly in order to experience one. There's usually very little chance of someone surviving an encounter like that, bar harming yourself like Vegeta when he had Krillin maim him, though of course, even then he was dying until Dende healed him. And the fact that both Nappa and Vegeta are surprised at Goku's increased strength when he arrives, and that he is not supposed to be that strong due to him being a lower-class warrior. If it was common for a lower-class warrior to get a Zenkai, then they wouldn't be so stunned, and their society itself might be different since the hierarchy seems to be based on strength. Speaking of which, this leads me to speaking about the other aliens, particularly Frieza and his forces. Now, we all know that Frieza is able to transform to raise and lower his power, and his final form he can summon his power to go maximum. But that is likely something he can do instinctively or from the fact he is a mutant. In fact, pretty much every exceptionally powerful alien we know of, like Kui, Zarbon, Dodoria, and the Ginyu Force, are either mutants or are heavily implied to be. And we know raising their battle power or training is almost non-existent, because not only are the Saiyans' ability to receive Zenkais worrying, but the Frieza Force is not a military structure based on seniority, but based on strength. And if Kui could take a month or two and surpass Zarbon in strength, then the entire military command structure would collapse, because everyone would be attempting to do the same. Instead, these aliens are naturally extremely powerful. Kui, Zarbon, and Dodoria all have the power to destroy a planet the size of Earth. Perhaps not with the same totality as Frieza, but they are immensely strong compared to the universe at large. There is no need to train, because running into someone that could provide any real challenge pretty much never occurs. And we also need to take into account the strength of the average Frieza soldier. Now, it's hard to determine exactly, but we do know that Namekians have a higher than average power level compared to the rest of the universe, and the average fit Namekian Dragon Clan member is 3,000, and we know from when those Namekian Dragon Clan members, when they showed up to fight Frieza's forces, they beat up the average Frieza soldier very easily. We also know that the average Saiyan is around the same strength as the Namekians, and if you want to learn more about that, watch my Saiyan video to see my reasoning on it. It would take too long here. But if that's the case, and the general Earthling population is extremely weak, then the average power for the universe at large is probably, I would say, between 500 to 1,500, most likely being around 1,000 or slightly less. And if I had to guess, Frieza would hire strong soldiers, and Raditz seems to be the same strength as the average Frieza soldier, or maybe slightly stronger. But with that in mind, if an Earthling has a power level of 5, and the average power level of an alien is around 1,000, and the stronger aliens are around 3,000, and Zarbon has a power level of 23,000 in his base form, then he is monumentally powerful compared to 99% of the universe. And so the stronger members of Frieza's forces, particularly the mutants, have never needed to learn to train or fine-tune their techniques. They hold a hegemony over the universe anyway. Now, let me give an example of a good comparison. A good example meaning between the differences between Earthling training and the natural ability of mutants is when Goku and Ginyu switch bodies. Ginyu cannot summon anywhere near Goku's strength, because despite his own ability to raise his battle power to a certain maximum, he does not have the fundamental understanding of ki, despite the fact he has a few special moves and can fly. It is all natural to him, or he worked on things to at least a very limited degree. Meanwhile, while Goku is having some difficulty in Ginyu's body with sensing ki, he still has the knowledge and ability to do it anyway, and roughly follows their path to find his friends again. Also, shout out to friend of the channel Dave, when I asked him to help make sure of the Japanese translation for these panels. Anyway, that right there is a hard feat amongst a lot of soft feats we have to go by. Earthling training is special in a lot of ways, and being a weaker species does have its weaknesses, obviously, but it also has its advantages if you can break through that barrier. Another relatively weak species that compensates with a lot of techniques are those on Yardrat, for instance, but we can talk about the specifics of them another day. To conclude, however, to gain power in the Dragon Ball world, you need to either be born with it, have natural abilities to gain it like Zenkai's, or absorption like Sailor Buu, or you need to work and start from a foundation of understanding like the Earthlings. I hope this video was informative and answered a lot of your questions. Do let me know if anything confused you. Also, I realized I did not mention the androids really, or magical creatures, but we all know how they start out extremely powerful and likely needs very little explanation. Okay, so that's all I have to say today. I'm going to link my other YouTube channel below in case you're interested in hearing me talk about non-Dragon Ball topics. And remember, your likes and comments are appreciated, and if you subscribe to my channel, thanks so much. Alright guys, see ya.